Chapter 16. Miss Pickerell to the Rescue. Almost immediately Miss Pickerell heard the voice of the captain coming from the walkie-talkie in his compartment. "Miss Pickerell," he said, "did I leave my watch in there?" Miss Pickerell hurried into the captain's compartment. The watch was on a bench. She noticed that it was just 12:30. "Yes, Captain," she said, stooping to speak into the microphone on a bench before the captain's chair. "I'll bring it to you. I'll put it on Mr. Haggerty's suit and bring it right out." "Miss Pickerell," the captain said in his customary sharp voice, "you are to remain on the ship. Those are my orders. I merely wanted to be sure that my watch was there. Do not leave the ship under any circumstances." Miss Pickerell did not answer. The captain had no right to talk to her like that. He had no right to give her orders. She was not a member of his crew. If she chose to get out and see what Mars looked like, he had no authority to prevent it. She went back to where Mr. Haggerty's pressure suit was lying in an open chest. She reached down to pick it up, but then she changed her mind. "I suppose it would be wrong," she said. "I suppose it would be more honest to wait until the captain gives me permission to go outside." She went back and sat down in the captain's chair. From time to time she heard the men speaking into their microphones. Sometimes they addressed remarks to her and she answered them. "Don't tell me what it's like," she said. "I want to see for myself when the captain lets me out." "I'll bring you a souvenir, Miss Pickerell." It was Wilbur's voice. "How would you like a rock?" "A rock!" Miss Pickerell exclaimed. "Are there rocks right out there?" "All kinds," Wilbur said. "Red mostly. They're very pretty. I'll bring you one." Now Miss Pickerell was twice as eager to get outside. Red rocks from Mars would make a wonderful addition to her rock collection at home. "Come back, Wilbur." This was the captain's voice. "You're getting too far away from us." "All right," Wilbur said. "I'm just getting a red rock for Miss Pickerell." "Miss Pickerell, what time is it?" the captain asked. Miss Pickerell looked at the captain's watch. "It's 1:15, she said. "All right, men," the captain said. "Everybody turn around and go back to the ship. We'll run out of oxygen if we stay away any longer." Miss Pickerell heard Wilbur's voice. "Captain, something's happened. I'm stuck. My foot is caught between two big rocks. Help me, Captain." Miss Pickerell listened for the captain's answer. "Here we come, Miss Pickerell," was all he said. "Captain!" Miss Pickerell shrieked. "Something must have happened to his walkie-talkie. He must not have heard Wilbur's call." Miss Pickerell remembered that once before this had happened, on the very first day of the flight, when Wilbur had tried to report her from the pasture gate to the spaceship. The walkie-talkie had been out of order at first. Again she heard Wilbur's voice. "Please, Captain, I need help." "What is it, Miss Pickerell?" said the captain's voice. "Is anything the matter?" There was a sharp click and complete silence. The walkie-talkie had gone dead. Miss Pickerell shouted into the mouthpiece, but there was no answer from the captain, or from Wilbur, or from Mr. Killian. For seconds Miss Pickerell sat there, stiff with horror. Unless the captain turned around, he would never know that Wilbur was not right behind him. Wilbur would run out of oxygen. "Wilbur," Miss Pickerell said, just in case he was still able to hear her voice. "Don't be frightened. I'm coming to help you." She dashed to where she had left Mr. Haggerty's pressure suit. She picked it up. It was clumsy and heavy. She struggled into it 1 foot at a time. She had no time to take off her clothes, and her skirts made a bulky wad around her waist. She took an oxygen tank and put it into the big loose pocket on the back of the suit. She lifted the helmet over her head and fastened it, though this was hard to do because of the thick gloves that sealed the ends of her sleeves. Last of all, Miss Pickerell connected the oxygen tank to its opening in the suit, the way Wilbur had showed her. She hurried to the pressure lock, but just before she entered it, she went back and gathered up another oxygen tank in her arms. This would be for Wilbur in case he ran out of oxygen before they could free his foot. Inside the pressure lock, she closed the inner door. She remembered Wilbur had said something about adjusting the pressure valve. In the wall of the lock was a small handle, and Miss Pickerell turned this. Immediately there was a hoarse sucking sound, and in a few moments Miss Pickerell was able to open the outer door. She almost fainted when she saw how high above the ground she was. There was a thin ladder leading down to the red rocky waste below, and she would have to descend this, wearing the bulky pressure suit and carrying the extra tank of oxygen for Wilbur. But Miss Pickerell did not hesitate. Somehow, slipping and clutching at each rung, and keeping her eyes tight closed to fight against her dizziness, somehow she managed to get to the ground. She opened her eyes. Far in the distance she could see Wilbur. He was alternately waving his arms in the air and stooping down to try to free his trapped foot. Between Wilbur and the spaceship, and coming toward her, Miss Pickerell saw the other men. Neither one had missed Wilbur. Apparently each man thought Wilbur was following behind. Clutching the oxygen tank, Miss Pickerell lumbered toward the men. It was hard to walk in the heavy suit. The ground was rough and rocky, and now and then strong gusts of wind blew thick clouds of red dust across the front of her helmet. She waved and pointed, trying to make the men turn around and look back, but this only made them walk faster. As they neared each other, Miss Pickerell could identify the face of the captain in the lead. He took long, angry steps, and his blue eyes were blazing. His lips inside the transparent helmet were moving, and although Miss Pickerell could not tell what he was saying, she knew he must be expressing his indignation at her for defying his orders about leaving the ship. "Captain!" she shouted. "Captain!" If only the walkie-talkie would work. The captain had almost reached her now. He tried to take hold of her arm, but Miss Pickerell squirmed away. She said the word Wilbur over and over, stretching her lips wide each time, hoping that the captain would understand. Then she suddenly grasped the captain by the sleeve of his suit and partly turned him around. She pointed again, and this time the captain saw. The captain hesitated for only a second. Very quickly and deftly he disconnected his oxygen tank and substituted it for the one Miss Pickerell was wearing. After he had connected the tank he had been wearing to her suit, he took the extra tank from her arms and hurried out across the rocks toward Wilbur. Miss Pickerell started to follow, but a gentle pull restrained her. It was Mr. Killian. Miss Pickerell turned back toward the ship. She realized that the captain's depleted tank of oxygen would not take her far. She would have to go back and wait inside the ship until the captain and Wilbur returned. Mr. Killian gestured that she was to climb the ladder and enter the pressure lock. From the top of the ladder, Miss Pickerell took one look back. She had the satisfaction of seeing that the captain had reached Wilbur. With one powerful tug, he freed Wilbur's trapped foot, and the two men stood together a moment while the captain connected the extra oxygen tank to Wilbur's suit. Then, as Miss Pickerell stooped through the outer door of the pressure lock, they hurried to the ship. Chapter 17. Home Again. From that day on, nothing was too good for Miss Pickerell. Mr. Killian, who still addressed the others in short, choppy sentences, became very talkative with Miss Pickerell and told her the complete story of his life, bit by bit. Wilbur waited on Miss Pickerel hand and foot, and the captain, even before he began repairing the walkie-talkie set, made her a stiff little speech of apology. "I have misjudged you, Miss Pickerel. I hope you will forgive my abruptness to you earlier in the flight. I doubt very much if even Mr. Haggerty could have thought and acted as quickly as you did to save Wilbur's life. It is an honor to have you as a member of our expedition." Now each time any of the men went outside, Miss Pickerel was allowed, and even urged, to accompany them. She made so many trips up and down the ladder between Mars and the spaceship that she quite overcame her dizziness and was never troubled by it again, so long as she lived. During their stay on Mars, Miss Pickerel had plenty of opportunity to see what the planet was like. She observed that it was dry, rocky, dusty, and flat. As far as the expedition could tell, there was no animal life on Mars, and Miss Pickerel saw for herself that the only plant life was a sort of dry moss that grew around some of the rocks. There were no clouds, except dust clouds. There was no rain. Miss Pickerel decided that the Earth was a much pleasanter planet than Mars. She was glad she lived on Earth. However, Miss Pickerel did find many beautiful red rocks on Mars, and the men were so generous about adding to her collection that within a few days her bunk was nearly filled with rocks. There was just a narrow space next to the wall for Miss Pickerel to sit and lie. Mars and the Earth were different in so many ways that Miss Pickerel was a little surprised to learn that the days on Mars were almost exactly the same length as the days on Earth. Only 37 minutes longer, Captain Crandall said one day when she asked him about it. You see, both Mars and the Earth are spinning around all the time, just like tops. That's what makes— I know, Miss Pickerel said. That's what makes day and night. And they both spin at just about the same rate. That's why days here on Mars are almost the same length as the days on Earth. And by the way, Miss Pickerel, I'd advise you to do something with those rocks of yours before tomorrow. We're going to start home tomorrow, and if you leave your rocks where they are, they'll be all over the place the minute we get away from the gravity of Mars. Maybe Wilbur can show you a chest or cupboard to put them in. Miss Pickerel saved out the 7 finest specimens, the ones she was going to give her nieces and nephews for souvenirs, so that she would have something to admire on the trip home. The rest of the rocks she and Wilbur locked away inside a chest. When it was time for the takeoff, Miss Pickerel strapped herself firmly back against her bunk, closed her eyes tightly, and prepared herself for the explosion. This time, too, although she had been determined not to, Miss Pickerel lost consciousness and wakened to find that once more they were without the pull of gravity. On the return trip, everyone was excited and happy, even the captain. He kept flitting back and forth between the main room and his own compartment, where he wrote page after page after page with his blue pencil. "This is going to be one of my finest lectures," he said one day. "And Miss Pickerel, sometime when I am lecturing in the vicinity of Square Toe Mountain, you must come and sit on the platform with me and let me introduce you to the audience as the first woman who has ever been to Mars. You'll be famous, you know." "How soon will we be home, Captain Crandall?" Miss Pickerel asked. "Just a few days more, Miss Pickerel. Aren't you excited?" "A little," Miss Pickerel admitted. But Miss Pickerel was also worried. The nearer they came to the end of their trip, the more Miss Pickerel worried. "It's about my cow," she confided to Wilbur. "I should never have left her all alone down there with a strange man." "Oh, I do hope she'll be all right." "You didn't mean to come, Miss Pickerel," Wilbur said. "It was an accident. It wasn't your fault." "I hope Mr. Haggerty won't be mad at me," Miss Pickerel said, "for coming in his place." Just then the captain called out from the instrument panel where he and Mr. Killian had been conferring. "We're approaching the earth now, Miss Pickerel. We're going to have to get used to gravity all over again. Why don't you try to go to sleep while we land?" Miss Pickerel did go to sleep, and when she woke up she knew by the heaviness of her body that they had returned. The pull of gravity was more than she could cope with. Even the men were having trouble moving this time. She saw Wilbur trying to walk along the edge of the room, but he was pulling himself along by using the handholds on the wall, as if he lacked the strength to move otherwise. He reached the pressure lock and opened both doors. A path of sunlight fell across the floor. Wilbur looked out. "Hi, Haggerty!" he shouted, and Miss Pickerel heard Mr. Haggerty answer him. Then she heard another sound, a welcome sound. She heard the contented mooing of her cow. Miss Pickerel sighed with relief. Now all she had to worry about was apologizing to Mr. Haggerty for taking his place so that he had to stay behind. By the time they were ready to leave the spaceship, Miss Pickerel had begun to regain the use of her arms and legs. She was beginning to get accustomed to her own heaviness again. She stood up. The captain emerged from the door of his compartment. He crossed to Miss Pickerel's bunk and picked up her pink sweater. He held the sweater for her so that she could slip her arms into the sleeves. "Captain Crandall," Miss Pickerel said, "promise me one thing. Promise you won't move this spaceship out of my pasture until my nieces and nephews have a chance to come and see it." "I promise," said the captain. Down on the ground, Miss Pickerel hurried toward Mr. Haggerty and her cow. Mr. Haggerty held the cow's rope in one hand. His other arm lay affectionately along her back. Miss Pickerel could see that the cow was well and happy. "Miss Pickerel," Mr. Haggerty said, "I just can't thank you enough for—" "Mr. Haggerty," said Miss Pickerel, "I do want to apologize." They both stopped and looked at each other. "Thank me for what?" Miss Pickerel asked. "For the chance to take care of your cow," said Mr. Haggerty. "Do you know what I've decided, Miss Pickerel?" "No," said Miss Pickerel. "I've decided to go back to college and study to be a veterinarian after all. And it's all because I've had such a good time making your cow well again. I just love farm animals." "And you're not mad because you didn't get a chance to go to Mars?" "Certainly not," said Mr. Haggerty. "And by the way, I have a message for you, Miss Pickerel. I wrote it down and put it in my briefcase. My briefcase is over there by the fence. It was a telephone message." "Oh, mercy," said Miss Pickerel. "Was it from the governor?" "I remember now," Mr. Haggerty said. "It was from the governor's wife. I told the governor what had happened the day he called you back, the first day of the flight. Then the governor's wife called. She told me to tell you they want you to come and visit in the governor's mansion when you get back. That was what I wrote down in my briefcase." Miss Pickerel stroked her cow's neck. She looked around her beautiful, green, sunny pasture. She heard the cow pulling off a mouthful of grass with a noisy tearing sound. "It's so good to be home," Miss Pickerel said. "Do you know something, Mr. Haggerty? There isn't even any grass on Mars." In the next few months, Miss Pickerel made several visits to the governor's mansion. The following year, at the state fair, her collection of red rocks from Mars won not only the blue ribbon, but also the special gold medal given each year for the most outstanding exhibit of the whole fair. The governor himself made the awards, and Mr. Haggerty spent his first college vacation on Miss Pickerel's farm. In fact, Miss Pickerel's life was never the same as it had been before she went to Mars. But the biggest change, and the one Miss Pickerell liked the best, was in her nieces and nephews. From the moment she called them up by long distance and invited them to come and see the spaceship in her pasture, from that moment on, her 7 nieces and nephews never tired of hearing Miss Pickerell tell them about her wonderful trip. They admired the blue ribbon and the gold medal, and all their lives long they treasured the souvenirs Miss Pickerell gave them, the 7 beautiful red rocks brought from the planet of Mars. The end.